What if the only thing standing between you and the life you've always dreamed of is not your circumstances, not your past, not even your bank account, but your own mind? What if the thoughts you think every single day are either building your future or quietly destroying it, and you don't even realize it's happening? Stay with me, because by the time this ends, you're going to look at your own thoughts in a completely different way. And trust me, once you see it, you can never unsee it. Hey, welcome back. If you're here for the first time, I'm really glad you found this. And if you've been here before, you already know what we do here. We don't rush, we don't just throw information at you. We sit with ideas, we feel them, we let them actually land. Today, we're going deep into one of the most powerful books ever written about the human mind. A book that was hidden for decades, and when it finally came out, it quietly changed the lives of everyone who truly read it. The book is called Own Your Mind by Napoleon Hill. Now, you might already know Napoleon Hill from Think and Grow Rich. That book changed millions of lives. But this one is different. This one goes deeper. This one talks about something most people never deal with, the actual control room of your life, your mind. Before we go further, if this kind of content speaks to you, hit like and subscribe. It genuinely helps more people find this. Okay, let's go. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine two people, same city, same age, same background. They both grow up in the same neighborhood. They both go to similar schools. They both face setbacks. They both struggle. On paper, they are almost identical. But 10 years later, one of them is living a life they're proud of, building something real, waking up with purpose, and the other one is stuck, still waiting, still blaming, still wondering why things never seem to work out. What's the difference? It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not connections. It's the way they think. One of them learned, at some point, how to own their mind. The other one never did. And that gap, that invisible gap, is what Napoleon Hill spent his entire life studying. Napoleon Hill believed something very simple, but also very radical. He believed that your mind is the most powerful tool you will ever own. More powerful than any skill you can learn, more powerful than any strategy or plan, more powerful than money itself. But here's the catch. Most people never actually own their minds. Their minds own them. Think about that for a second. Your thoughts happen to you. You wake up in the morning and worry comes to you. Doubt comes to you. Fear comes to you. You scroll through your phone and other people's thoughts fill your head. You go through the day reacting, not choosing. That's not owning your mind. That's being driven by it. Napoleon Hill said, the first and most important step toward any kind of success, any kind of real change, is learning to take control of what goes on inside your head. And that's what this entire book is about. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Hill talks about something he called the mastermind principle. And no, I'm not talking about a group of friends getting together to study. This is deeper. He said, the human mind is not just one thing. It's layers. It's like an iceberg. What you see on the surface, your conscious thoughts, that's just the tip. Underneath, there's a whole ocean of beliefs, habits, emotional patterns, and invisible programming that's been running your life since childhood. And most people spend their whole lives only working with the tip of the iceberg. They set goals consciously. They make plans consciously. They try and try again, consciously. But underneath, the deep current is pulling them back. Have you ever felt that? You genuinely want to change something. You know what you need to do, but somehow, you just don't do it. Or you start, and then slowly drift back to old patterns. That's not weakness, that's the iceberg. Hill said, until you deal with what's underneath, nothing will permanently change above the surface. So how do you actually own your mind? Hill gives us a roadmap. and I want to walk through it with you slowly, because this is where the real gold is. The first key he talks about is this: definiteness of purpose. Simple words, massive meaning. He said, most people are mentally scattered. Their attention goes here, then there. They want 10 things at once. They're interested in everything and committed to nothing. And because of that, their mental energy is constantly being divided, diluted, wasted. But when you have one clear, burning purpose, one thing you are deciding to move toward with everything you have, something shifts inside you. Your mind starts to organize itself around that purpose. It starts filtering information differently. It starts noticing opportunities it was previously blind to. It starts pulling resources, ideas, and people toward you in ways that feel almost magical. Hill called this the power of a definite chief aim. And he wasn't speaking poetically. He genuinely believed, and his research backed it, that a focused mind is exponentially more powerful than a scattered one. Imagine a magnifying glass on a sunny day. The sun is there, the light is there, but unfocused, it just warms the ground. The moment you focus it on one point, it can start a fire. Your mind works the same way. So here's a question I want you to sit with for a moment. What is your one thing? Not 5 things, not 3 things. One thing. If you asked the most honest version of yourself what you truly want to build or become, what would it say? Write it down. Seriously, not on your phone in a note you'll forget. Somewhere you'll see it every day. Because Hill said, the simple act of writing your purpose down and reading it daily begins to rewire the deep currents of your mind. But wait, this is just the beginning. Because having a purpose isn't enough. Hill knew that. That's why the next piece is just as important. And honestly, this is the part nobody talks about. He called it autosuggestion. Now that word might sound scientific or complicated, but it's actually the simplest thing in the world. Autosuggestion means the thoughts you repeatedly send to your subconscious mind eventually become your reality. Let me say that again slowly. The thoughts you repeatedly send to your subconscious mind eventually become your reality. Here's why. Your subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, "Are you sure?" It doesn't fact-check. It just accepts. It treats whatever you tell it repeatedly as truth. So if you spend your days thinking, "I'm not smart enough. I always mess things up. People like me don't succeed," your subconscious hears that as instruction, as truth, and it starts building a life that matches that truth. This is not just philosophy. Modern neuroscience confirms it. The stories you tell yourself about yourself literally shape the neural pathways in your brain, literally shape what you're capable of seeing and doing and becoming. Napoleon Hill was saying this 80 years before neuroscience could prove it. And what he prescribed was simple. Begin to consciously, deliberately, repeatedly feed your mind the thoughts you want to become true. Not fake positivity. Not pretending your problems don't exist, but genuinely planting seeds of what you intend to become. Think of your mind like a garden. Right now, weeds are growing. They've been growing for years. You didn't plant them deliberately. They just grew because that's what unattended gardens do. But you have the power to start planting different seeds, every morning, every night, before sleep, on repeat. I am becoming someone who finishes what they start. I am building something real. My mind is strong, clear, and capable. At first it feels awkward, maybe even silly. But Hill says, keep going anyway, because the repetition is the point. The repetition is the water. Right now, you might be thinking, okay, but does this actually work? Or is this just feel-good talk? Let me tell you about a pattern Hill observed across hundreds of the most successful people he studied. He spent decades interviewing and studying people like Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison. People who built things from nothing. People who faced failure after failure and still kept going. And the one thread that connected all of them was this. They had an unshakable internal narrative. Not arrogance, not blind positivity, but a deep, quiet, internal knowing that they would figure it out, that they were capable of more. that failure was information, not identity. And Hill traced that belief back to one simple habit, what they consistently told themselves in the quiet moments. Edison failed over 10,000 times before the light bulb worked. 10,000. Most people quit after 10. What kept him going wasn't talent. It wasn't resources. It was the story in his own mind. The one that said, "I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work." That's autosuggestion at its most powerful. Now here's something that I want to sit with for a moment, because this is where the book takes an unexpected turn. Hill talks about the concept of applied faith. And I want to be very clear about what he means here, because it's not about religion. It's not about blind belief. It's about something more practical. He defines applied faith as acting as if what you desire is already on its way to you. Most people wait to feel confident before they act. They wait until they're ready. They wait until they have proof. They wait for certainty. But Hill says certainty comes after the action, not before. Think about a time in your life when you did something scary. Maybe it was a conversation you were nervous to have. Maybe it was starting something new. Maybe it was letting go of something comfortable. Before you did it, it felt terrifying. But after, even if it wasn't perfect, something in you felt stronger, more capable. That's applied faith. You acted before you had proof, and the action itself produced the confidence you were waiting for. Hill says this is a law, not a suggestion, a law. The mind does not give you courage so you can take action. The mind gives you courage because you take action. So what's the action you've been waiting to feel ready for? What's the one thing you know in your gut you need to do, that you keep pushing to tomorrow? I want you to genuinely think about that as we go forward. And this brings us to one of the most powerful chapters in this entire book, one that most people skip over because it sounds simple. But it's not simple, it's revolutionary. Hill talks about the habit of going the extra mile. Now I know, you've heard this before. Work harder, do more, go beyond what's expected. But Hill's explanation of why this matters is completely different from what you might think. He says, going the extra mile is not about impressing other people. It's not even primarily about reward. It's about what it does to you. When you consistently give more than what's required of you, in your work, in your relationships, in your own growth, you are sending a message to your subconscious mind. You are telling yourself, I am the kind of person who doesn't cut corners. I am the kind of person who goes beyond. I am the kind of person who shows up fully. And over time, your identity shifts to match your actions. This is why so many people try to change and fail. They try to think their way into a new identity. But Hill says, you act your way into it. The thoughts come later. The belief comes after the behavior. So, if you want to own your mind, you have to train it through your actions. Every small decision you make either builds the version of you that you want, or quietly reinforces the version you're trying to leave behind. There's a story Hill shares, and it stayed with me long after I finished the book. He talks about a young man who was working in a small shop, barely making enough, invisible to everyone around him. But every single day, he did more than what was asked. He arrived early. He stayed late. He solved problems no one asked him to solve. He treated every customer like they mattered. Years passed, and then one day, the owner of the company was watching. And what he saw was a man who worked as if he owned the place. And so, eventually, he did. Not because the world rewarded him immediately, but because his actions had been silently building his character. And when opportunity finally arrived, he was already the person who could hold it. Hill called this being ready before the opportunity shows up. Most people are waiting for the door to open. The wise ones are already on the other side of it in their mind. We're about halfway through now, and I just want to check in with you. Are you with me? Because what we're about to get into is the part that I think is the most emotionally powerful in this entire book. And if you haven't already, this is a great moment to like and subscribe. Not for the algorithm, for yourself, so you can come back to this. Okay, let's keep going. Hill talks at length about something he calls the Mastermind Alliance. And this is where the book becomes deeply human. He says, no one achieves greatness alone. No one. Not Edison, not Carnegie, not Ford. Every single person he studied had a small, tight circle of people around them who shared their vision, who sharpened their thinking, who held them accountable, who believed in them even when they didn't believe in themselves. And here's the key that most people miss. A true mastermind alliance is not just a network. It's not just a group of people you know. It's a group of people whose minds combine to create something larger than any single mind could produce alone. Think of it like this. One log can't start a fire by itself, but put 3 or 4 logs together, and suddenly you have something powerful, something that sustains itself.
Your mind is the same. In isolation, it can only access what it already knows. But in the presence of people who challenge you, who think differently, who push you, your mind begins to reach for things it never could alone. Hill said, "Show me who you spend time with, and I'll show you who you're becoming." And I want to ask you something honestly. Look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Not who you want to be around, who you actually are around every day. Are they pulling you forward, or are they keeping you comfortable in a place you've already outgrown? This might be uncomfortable. That's okay. Discomfort is usually a sign that something is true. Hill doesn't say, cut people off coldly. He says, be intentional. Begin seeking people who are already where you want to go. Read what they read. Listen to what they listen to. Be around conversations that challenge you, because your environment is not just physical, it's mental. And the mental environment you choose every day is shaping who you become. Now here's the part nobody talks about when they discuss this book. Hill dedicates an entire section to the enemy inside your own mind, and he gives it a name. He calls it fear. And not just any fear. He breaks it down into what he calls the 6 ghosts of fear, the 6 invisible forces that rob more people of their potential than any external obstacle ever could. The fear of poverty, the fear of criticism, the fear of ill health, the fear of loss of love, the fear of old age, the fear of death. Now, you might be thinking, I'm not afraid of death. I'm doing okay health-wise. But here's what Hill shows us. These fears rarely show up in their obvious form. They disguise themselves as procrastination, as perfectionism, as I'll start Monday, as who am I to try this, as constant seeking of approval from people around you. They hide in the small daily decisions, in the emails you don't send, in the conversations you avoid, in the dreams you quietly talk yourself out of before they even get a chance. And here's the devastating part. Most people carry these fears their whole lives and never once look them in the eye. They spend a lifetime arranging their world around avoiding the feeling of fear, building routines, relationships, and careers designed to keep them safe from the things they're most afraid of. And then one day they look back, and they wonder where their life went. Hill says the only cure for fear is action in the direction of the fear. Not reckless action, not ignoring the fear, but walking toward it, deliberately, slowly, consistently. Because every time you face a fear and survive, and you always survive, you are sending a new message to your mind. I am stronger than this. I can handle this. I am not defeated by this. And that message, repeated enough times, is how you break free. 5 years from now, if nothing changes, where will you be? Not in a cruel way, not to scare you, but genuinely. If the patterns you have right now continue without interruption, where does that path lead? That's not a rhetorical question. Hill says that question, asked honestly, is one of the most powerful forces for change. Because the human mind will fight hard to avoid a painful future. And if you can clearly see, with vivid emotional detail, the cost of staying exactly as you are, something moves. That's why this book isn't just a collection of ideas, it's a mirror that shows you both who you're currently being and who you could become if you chose differently. Hill closes the book with a message that I think deserves its own moment. He says, "The mind is the only thing in this world over which you have absolute and unquestionable control. Not your circumstances, not other people, not the economy, not the weather, not your past, but your mind. That is entirely yours." And he says, this is either the most empowering truth in the world or the most terrifying one, depending on what you do with it. Because if it's true, if your mind is truly yours to own, then you can't blame anyone else anymore. You can't wait for the right conditions. You can't hide behind the story that life just happened to you. It means you have always had the power, even in your worst moments, even in your hardest seasons, the power to choose the thought, to choose the response, to choose the direction. That's not a burden. That's the most beautiful truth in the world. Let me bring this full circle. Remember those two people I asked you to imagine at the beginning? Same city, same background, same struggles. Two completely different lives 10 years later? Now you know why. It wasn't luck. It wasn't talent.
One of them decided, at some quiet, almost invisible moment in their life, to own their mind. To stop letting fear make their decisions. To stop waiting to feel ready. To choose their thoughts deliberately. To build an internal world that matched the external life they wanted. And that decision, that one invisible decision, changed everything. Here's the truth that Napoleon Hill spent his entire life trying to give us. Your life does not change in one big dramatic moment. It changes in small decisions, repeated every single day, in the quiet moments when no one is watching, in the thoughts you choose when you could choose fear, in the action you take when every part of you wants to wait. Owning your mind is not a destination, it's a daily practice. It's choosing, again and again, to be the person who directs their own thinking instead of being directed by it. And every time you make that choice, you become a little more of who you're meant to be. I want to leave you with one question today, and I genuinely want you to think about it. You can drop your answer in the comments if you want. What is the one thought that you've been letting control you that you're ready to finally replace? Just one. You don't need to solve everything today, but that one thought, if you chose to change it, what would become possible? Take care of your mind. It is the only home you will live in your entire life. See you in the next one.